the concept that we have. You know that we are into nearly 265 webinars so far. We started just as COVID was setting in, and we feel very fortunate that we are able to contribute to public policy through the webinars, inviting the best minds from across the world. As you are already aware, we have mentioned numerous times, we have had people from scholars, public policy experts, academicians, name it, from across the world. Some from other countries, some from within our country. We have had an excellent blend of speakers from outside and from within our country. We have had discussions on topics which are extremely important, and most of the time we have had discussions on contemporary issues. We did a discussion with the G20 presidency on the international economic order. We also did discussions on climate as well as on women empowerment. So on, we have been very fortunate that we have the privilege to host 3 Nobel laureates, and we are now hosting next week another Nobel laureate, and a week after that, another Nobel laureate. So I must thank you all for continuing to be interested in activities of EGROW, joining us at different odd times, and we have been very successful in discussing policy issues. I'm happy to share that in most of the times, there are our recordings always available on our website, most of the times, not always. But whenever they are available, I do get questions from policymakers a week or 10 days later saying, on your website, we saw this issue came up. Can we contact the speaker or something like that? That shows there's been a keen interest all across on issues that are being discussed under the EGROW webinar series. Of late, we have all been worried. What is happening to the new international economic order? It is in this context that Madam Aruna Sharma, a dear friend, has just completed a book. The book is yet not in hard copy print, but soft copy, as I just learned from her, is now up.
No, hard copy is there because they sent me 4 of them.
Oh, hard copy is also there. Okay.
I've got one.
Okay.
That's true. Yeah.
So now we requested her to come and do this presentation with us to discuss this book. We have, because there is so much in this SDG on education, on poverty eradication, we have requested Professor Pratyush Vatsala, Principal and Professor, Lakshmibai College, Delhi University, who has more than 30 years of experience of teaching at postgraduate colleges in Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, and Delhi. She has widely published in national and international journals, and we wanted her, because she's from the education stream, we wanted her to chair this session, which she kindly agreed. To discuss the book, we have an economist, another dear friend, Christopher Garroway, who is the United Nations country team economist for India, based in New Delhi since 2021. And during India's 2023 G20 presidency, he was seconded to India's G20 Sherpa office, and in 2022, he served on the United Nations Global Crisis Response Group. So we invited him to be our first discussant. Professor Indu Varshney, an economist with 30 years of teaching experience in economics, is also the secretary of the Indian Economic Association. So we invited her to be part of the discussion today. Now, let me introduce the speaker for the day. We have Dr. Aruna Sharma. She is an IAS officer of the 1982 batch. She was in a 5-member high-level RBI committee on the deepening of digital payments at the Reserve Bank of India. Her previous work include dancing towards the $5 trillion economy on a holistic beat, resource convergence mantra model, impact of recourse convergence in policymaking, program design and execution. Her article on the Samagra anti-poverty program in Madhya Pradesh Integrating Household Data, Overcoming Silo Problems and Leaving Nobody Behind, was published in Development Policy Review, May 2021 edition. I think the book finds its root from that article and has scaled up from there. She is a fellow at the University of Bath in the UK and an alumnus of Harvard Kennedy School, USA. I did not know that part, Dr. Aruna, because I spent a year at Kennedy School, 2003 to 2004, and fabulous place to interact with public policy experts from across the world. Very rich place. She specializes in tech and fintech, the digital world, core sectors, and environment issues usage for inclusive development. She regularly writes for the Financial Express, the Economic Times, and the electronic media. And we, Professor Aruna, me, are also in a very close-knit policy circle where we discuss so many issues on a regular basis. I would say on daily basis, something comes up and we are in touch with each other. So here we are. That's the panel and the speaker. And we are looking forward to listening from Dr. Aruna Sharma on the SDG. I hand over the session to Professor Vatsala to take the proceedings further. Professor Vatsala.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Professor Charan Singh, for giving me this opportunity to chair this session. And I find myself almost out of place amidst these, economists. I'm a person of literature, basically, working as principal at Lakshmi Bai College, University of Delhi. However, SDGs are concerned, and these are the universal call for action. And these SDGs affect all. We all know that it is like a clarion call for action for human development and dignity. It's an awakening from slumber with eyes wide open. It's a call for action. It's a kind of searching of the soul of humanity, how, as a literary person, I see the humanity which has fallen upon the thorns of life, if I quote Shelley, and it is still bleeding. Though these SDGs, or through these SDGs, 193 countries are trying to free the aching heart of mankind. It is trying to free the human race from the misery of poverty that is so terrible that it gets ready even to sell its soul. I would like to quote 2 lines of a Hindi poem that says, भूख हर दर्शन का घूंघट हटा देती है, भूख हर दर्शन का घूंघट हटा देती है, रोटी यदि सामने हो तो आत्मा भी कपड़े उतार देती है. So the SDG 1 is something of that kind. And of course, 1 and 2 both are concerned with that hunger. All these 193 countries here come together and share each other's groans, sorrows, and plan together to ensure growth, development, and well-being to all. No one should be left behind, but this is not easy. These are our hopes and aspirations, difficult to hit the target. It's a challenge to accelerate the pace and target our desired result. We know that only 12% SDGs are doing well, while 30% are stagnated, as the data shows. Some SDGs are at moderate level. Now, what is to be done? Should we extend the date or change the strategy or work really hard with an integrated approach? And even if we extend the deadline, is it going to work if we have the same approach? There are people and states who have experimented with the strategies Do we need to change the strategy, or do we need to follow the same speed and strategy? It is going, after all, it's a question to satisfy the and needs and differences that we have across the globe. How we can work together to aim at a world free of hunger, disease, and wants, so that we can together thrive. And these SDGs should not become a rhetoric. As we know, the title of the book by Dr. Aruna Sharma. So here are the questions that how we can work together. Should we extend the date? There are many questions that are to be discussed through this panel. The concept of one world, one family, one future. We know that this is the only way to achieve such a high aspirational target, but not easy to achieve in an individualistic and material world. The world is too much with us, as Wordsworth said way back in 19th century. However, we have to grow and maintain the balance in all its dimensions, whether it is economic, social, or environmental. We have to embrace the changes and the uncertainties. So the clock is ticking. How to accelerate our pace, that is the greatest question. So we are here to listen to Dr. Aruna Sharma, the speaker of the day. So over to Dr. Aruna Sharma. I'm honored to invite you to speak and to discuss threadbare these issues, these challenges that are posing to the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Vatsala. You have set the background so beautifully, and the concerns expressed are so good. So I'll be talking about my recent book, which is being published by Cambridge Scholars. That is the 4 copies they have sent to me, and now they are in the process of massive release for it and sending it to all international organizations as well as the governments and the policymakers. So the titling is Development Goals Do Not Become Rhetoric, as has been rightly said by Professor, from silo to convergence approach. Unfortunately, SDGs, which started with a big fanfare in 2015, it converted itself more into a wish list. So it became more like a wish list or something. And right from the beginning, it started with a negative concept that it may not be achievable. So in the sense, today when we have a look at it or we look at the various reports, it is more like stagnation in progress. So it seems to be coming and not achieving to the levels it should. And post-pandemic, even though the economy is recovering and the resources are flowing back, the talk is that whether we should extend the date. Now, extend the date is more like an excuse for instead of visiting back the drawing board and reworking the approach when we are going. So here I am focusing on basically the concept of no one should be left about, and which is the multidimensional approach to the poverty. So if you look at the multidimensional, out of 17, goal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 16, and 17, they directly involve inclusiveness. In a way, that 11 out of 17 goals are focused on that. And we have goal number 9, talking about the livelihood opportunities, where there will be a symbiotic relationship with the environment. So when we have these kind of 11 goals in front of us, then definitely we cannot have a silo approach if we really are talking about no one should be left behind and move ahead with it. So the solution here has to be a system-based approach. That is, we have to shift to common household data-wise, socio-economic database, and then break the silos through it by using it. So this is the kind of an approach where I have picked up the examples and the progress which has been made in various countries. India, for its DBT, that is direct benefit transfers, did adopt a common household database, and Samagra it is named, and it is already there in 8 of the states where the database is common. That is your name, your household members, then unique household members, your caste, your BPL, your bank account number, your Aadhaar number, everything. So that data is frozen, and then there are vertical columns in which everybody works. So whether it is health with its immunization and healthcare and Ayushman Bharat, or whether it is as verticals for education, whether it is a vertical for scholarship, housing, skilling, livelihood opportunities, loan, credit given, everything comes. So you have a horizontal data available which is real time and time series data, which will enable you to see the status of a particular family, ensuring therefore that nobody is left out, and better targeting, better planning when we are moving ahead with it. So if you look at it, we were talking about sustainable development 9 from in 1987, when Portland report talked about people, planet and prosperity. So we have been going like that. We had MDGs which were not of much success. And then of course we have now the SDGs, which we are supposed to achieve by 2030. And how we are going about, Professor Vatsala rightly said the humanity part of it. Goal 16 talks of human rights. So with the lens of human rights, we have to ensure how we go about it and move from poverty to prosperity, that is P2P, when we are going ahead with it. Now, I have taken up the examples of the level of preparedness and shifting to this approach, and countries which have not shifted to the approach, their status, and it is relevant to both developed, developing, and underdeveloped economies. So in developed economies, I have taken example from France, UK, US, and Nordic countries. For developing economies is Malawi, Chile, Rwanda, Bangladesh, and of course, underdeveloped economies, the entire continent of Africa. And this is how we have proceeded ahead with the India example of how they have gone about it and how this data has helped them by having a common household database so that it is maintained on real time, and whatever inferences we are calling is not like HDI or Gini index where it is a sample survey and interpretation and policy making is done through sample survey. Now, in this approach, you are not having a sample, but you are having a holistic data with you, and that is how you move ahead. So I'll quickly highlight what these countries are doing and then stop to get comments from the other panelists. So if you look at the France, they have gone for a national directory. And in the national directory, which is to be graduated to common household database. Because today they still are suffering with some silo problems, like they are handling the issues of employment, poverty, educational inequalities, gender inequalities, everything. And now they have a Director General of ATD, which is going to be the major controller and coming up with this kind of a database. So initially what they did in 2017, they assigned various SDGs to different ministries. So that ended up into a very difficult silo approach where everybody was moving their own way at their own speed on their own data. And like I pointed out, 11 are directly interconnected with each other, and definitely they cannot work with silos. So they have now come up with National Institute of Statistics and Economic Studies, INSEE, which is now moving towards this kind of a holistic common household database. If you look at the US and other Nordic countries, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, then who have a very good HDI indexes, quality life rankings are very good, but by microanalysis, you will find there are still indifferences. You have poverty issues. Like Jeffrey Sachs, who is a prominent economist, he has very clearly pointed out that we have to think of performance beyond GDP. So therefore, that's what brings in social challenges of high inequality, racial violence, spill effects of environment, and how illegal migrations are triggered because of this inequality. what US is facing today of these illegal migrations, the core lies in the differences of the economic level of different countries across the globe, and they are moving ahead by any legal or illegal means towards where they think that they will be able to have better than subsistence level of income, sustainable level of incomes. And US do face a lot of gender income inequality, that is your SDG 5 and 10, and they have unsustainable consumption and production problems. So now they are also thinking of a common household database and development of US, which is today said to be imbalanced, as Schmidt-Traub has rightly said. Census Bureau is defining households in the ACS. So they are also moving now to have a household-wise database. The next graduation, they have to move towards using this database for all the execution and policy making as we are moving ahead. If you look at the UK, then definitely they are one of the better performing countries with 25% achievement, whereas rest of the world, like Professor rightly said, is 12%. And 30% has lost their track completely of the SDG goals. So UK SSD, where they are now focusing on sustainable development network and talking about the databases in silos to separate it completely and bring it to a common household databases. So these are where the developed economies are also having a lot of differences of the income levels, lot of different, they are battling with poverty and resultant immigration. They are having gender problems. So therefore, the shift to have a real-time data and policy intervention so that the last person in the queue is not left out is very, very important. Now, if I take the developing economies, then Malawi, Chile, Rwanda, and Bangladesh, these are the 4 examples I've taken. Malawi, highest density of population in Africa, if you look at it. And out of 15 million, half are. So you understand how difficult the task for them is for that. And therefore, proper targeting in governance is a big challenge. And having coupled with that, sustainable income levels through agriculture is very, very important. So they have now come up with education focused on vocational training and targeting households so that their requirement of skilling is not like a general prescription, but tailor-made to the requirements in that area and how they can move ahead with it. Similarly, if I say Chile, then you will find that they have national policies. And something very, very good that has happened is they have halved the population below the poverty line. And this they have done by, again, breaking the silos, bringing it together, and through their national council, they are focusing and moving towards common household databases. Rwanda, if I look at it, their entry point has been access to the finance. And Umuganda, which is a very good example of using community to complete the difficult task, is incorporated in the consent. So they are not only talking about the policymaker efforts, but a community coming together to resolve the issues is something which they are moving in a systematic manner. But that is only now to become a foundation so that they can migrate to and graduate to having this common household database process. Bangladesh, they went in a very good way and they adopted the complete process what India has been advocating. And they have now comparative systems, stakeholders, old prevailing systems, and they are slowly moving towards it. The underdeveloped economies, Africa is producing a biggest challenge. Their data status as a continent, you will find a complete lack of data in critical sectors. And therefore, there is no systematic or system-based planning on governance parameters or models. Therefore, it is very, very important they start off and jump towards this common household database approach. Only 3 African countries have registration of debt. Population not been conducted in 14 countries since 2010. So without data, there are blind policies which is being driven. If you look at it, they are misdirected. They are misdirected policies that you are having. And Mo Ibrahim has very beautifully said it, that without data, we are driving blind policies that are misdirected and progress on the road to development is stunted. So no matter what you pump in African or Africa continent, what efforts they are doing, the data lack or data-based approach not being incorporated in the governance model is having the issues. We can see how Ghana or Akara has done much better because they have resorted to this common household database opportunities. Nigeria, if you look how the SDG fund has been used by some countries, again in silos. So SDG also has to change and pipeline its funds to enable them to prepare this kind of a common household database approach. Nigeria, nutrition only. Samoa, it was sent for organic production, wage employment, cash transfers, little bit on education. Tanzania, only for poor women. Bangladesh, ultra poor women. Paraguay, if you go in for, it was only for the health. So all the above approaches are in silo and they will no way push the country to go towards achieving the SDG goal in a sustainable manner. So what is important is a specific intra-household interventions for addressing the issues in this context. So universal basic income, when we are talking about, what becomes important is when you are moving from environmental issues of waste to health. So plastics, mining, carbon footprint, I've discussed, CBAM, US's withdrawal, water security, electronic everything the sustainable employment models. So it is not a policy of ban. It has to be a policy of ways to help when we are moving ahead with it. So if you look at it, what is very, very important at this moment of time of SDG is to go back to the drawing board. And on the drawing board, it is very important that we create with the SDG funds hand-holding to shift to this common household databases, merge the databases which are working in silos, and interventions are directed to achieve what has been very rightly said, that we cannot have differences intra-country or inter-country if we want to grow together as a human population. And then, of course, the golden line is no one should be left behind. So with this kind of a thing, I've analyzed in this book how this graduation is going to take place in all the three economies. Every economy needs this kind of a shift to optimize the skewed resources that are available and then ensure that we do make SDG a success, which was a very noble thought, very right thought, and has been rightly said, 193 countries signed it, means it has to be a commitment. It cannot be that, okay, it's a rhetoric that come 2030, we will say, oh, we failed in these grounds, and we'll have something ahead. Thank you. I think I'll stop here, and then from there, if need be, I can intervene. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Aruna, for explaining it so beautifully. And as we know that these SDGs are also interdependent, so obviously we cannot achieve these SDGs through this silos approach, and we have to have convergence. Now we have on our panel the distinguished experts. So I invite Dr. Chris Garroway for his comments and discussions on the topic.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vatsala. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Aruna Sharma, for that great presentation. It was really interesting, and thank you also, Dr. Sharon Singh and EGROW, for inviting me to just meet with you all today. I thought, from the United Nations point of view, I could give you just a couple thoughts about some of the issues raised in Dr. Aruna Sharma's book, which I think are really important as we reflect on the SDGs. Now, as was mentioned earlier, at this very challenging time, perhaps, geopolitically, in terms of where do we stand on the SDGs and what do they mean and what have we accomplished with them, and what happens afterwards. So first, specifically, and I'm really glad you raised, Dr. Aruna Sharma, this idea of you call it the Common Household Database. The example I read last evening some of the first pages of your book, and you refer a lot to the Samagra database in Madhya Pradesh, and from UN perspective, we think that we call these social registries, and Samagra is a really great example of the convergence of a household-wide database and how it can help social policy. And we also are working with Rajasthan. They have the Jan Aadhaar is a similar system. You have also in Karnataka the Kutumba system, and then also in UP in Uttar Pradesh the Family ID. My colleagues from UNICEF are working closely in all these states with the governments, and these are really exemplary systems. And you started to talk about also the example that they can show for other countries. And I think that, for me, is one of the real victories of the SDGs. Even if we're not achieving them globally, the kind of revolution in governance, if you will, that has been enabled by this focus on the interrelated dimensions of the SDGs and how to inform policymaking, I think is a real victory. And I think India has been a place that has succeeded in that better than many other countries. And so that's kind of, from that point of view, I wanted to just touch on a couple of aspects of the SDGs that I think we have to keep in mind as we think about, and it's a really timely moment to do that, because right now, Government of India is doing their third voluntary national review of the SDGs, which will be presented by the government in July at the High-Level Political Forum in New York under the auspices of Economic and Social Council. And it's 10 years into the SDGs. Where are we? And what have we learned? And I think the thing to remember there, there's kind of two aspects to think about. First of all, there's the nature of the goals as aspirational targets, and what that means, and what also the issue related to the ownership of the goals, which is unlike any other agenda, I think, that we've ever seen that's come from top down in global discourse. These goals are owned by people around the world, by all countries, but also in India, all the way down to the village level. The states, the districts, the blocks, and I think that ownership is really critical. And these systems that you mentioned are really great ways that ownership has been implemented. And of course, the integrated nature of the goals. And I think that's where I would like to start, because when we agreed the goals at the United Nations in 2015, we've done this consultation. I was actually based in India prior to that. Between 2011 and 2013, I took part in the consultations. We consulted over 100 civil society groups here, really to make sure that a wide range of society fed into this process about what the goals were. And myself as an economist, I loved the MDGs because it was very easy to focus on some outcomes, and then I could put a lot of other variables on the other side of the equation, and I could do my econometrics, and it was, from an analytical point of view, very satisfying. The SDGs, by contrast, are very messy. You have many different theories of change in your SDGs. And you can remember when we agreed the SDGs, everyone was drawing these network diagrams to show the interrelationship among goals, and it gets very confusing. And I don't think we as a whole society or whole planet even really truly understood the interrelated nature of the SDGs until the crisis of COVID happened. Because I think that is when we were in crisis, we saw clearly how the goals are related. And we saw how, very quickly rising food prices could hurt spending on health and education, could indebt countries. And we now really understand the need for systems-based analysis to understand the interlinkages across policy areas. And so I think that's a really valuable lesson that has come from this crisis. And that crisis may mean that the goals are off track, and it may mean that the goals will not be achieved by 2030. But I also think that in and of itself, that brings us back to this issue of aspirations. The resilience that we saw in some countries, for example, here in India, the resilience that we saw to the crisis, I think is in itself a lesson that the SDGs has taught the world. And the model that some of these, for example, like Samagra, like Jan Aadhar, these types of models that can be used by other countries to have a resilient system in place when there is crisis, when there is development challenges, when there is the kind of headwinds we see globally in the global economy. That's a real strong victory for the SDGs. And I think to that end, I'll just mention one of the real interesting results that we've seen from this integration of policy areas is the definition of social protection that is observed. The World Social Protection Report 2024 to 26 just came out from ILO about 6 months ago, and they revised upwards India's social protection coverage, which according to ILO definitions had only been 24% of the Indian population was covered by social protection. That's because they don't count, ILO doesn't count food aid, food-based safety nets as social protection. But because of the integration of these systems across India and the statistical exercise that we could use the Aadhaar universal identifier to see all the different cash-based social protection systems that are available to people, we were able to convince ILO that actually at least 48% of Indians are covered by some form of social protection. And actually the number is probably higher and will probably be revised upwards in the next report. But that, I think, that tells you about the strength of how the SDGs built a resilient system in a country like India, and what that can also, India then can offer to the world in terms of development lessons to be learned. Now, you asked about what should come after the SDGs. And I think what's really interesting in this country is we talk about Viksit Bharat 2047, and we think about all the progress that has been made through the tying together of these social protection schemes and all this the interrelationships among policy areas. We have a very good resilient system in place. But what we don't yet have is a new engine of growth to give us the kind of growth that we need to achieve developed country status in India by 2047. And I think for me, that is already, as we go from SDG localization in India to SDG acceleration, that's the big question for the next 5 years, because we want to see India accelerate through the 2030 deadline in a way that'll keep on going to developed country status at 2047. And I think that's the discussion that I hope we're having around the country about that. How we can get more. We're seeing female labor force participation rates go up around the country, which is great. But we also want to make sure that those young women entering the labor force are going into jobs and sectors that produce for the whole country, that make in India, that take advantage of the new value chains that are out there, and that counter those headwinds that we've seen out there. And I think that is a way, if we can figure that out, India truly can be an engine of growth for the world, not just for 2047, but for all of Asia and all of the world for the 21st century. So I'll leave it right there. I have lots more I could say on this subject, but thank you again to the organizers for putting together this really great discussion. Back to you, Dr. Vatsala. I think you're muted, ma'am.
Sorry. Thank you, Chris, for your comments. yes, we do need new engine of growth. We need ownership, and that is what India is talking about, like Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. When we say the world is a family, so we own our family. We think, we feel, we share with our families. So just like the common minimum program that countries agree upon, we do need some common database to be convergent and to avoid this silo approach that breaks us apart. Just like Dr. Aruna was sharing with us, that different ministries were working in their own ways. So we needed one institute that can integrate all the data and the work itself. So we also know that even the GDP, like if we want to improve the health, we need sanitation and hygiene. We need, dignity, human dignity. We need decent work. So it's not like that we are just, if we improve on GDP, we are going to have, health and well-being. So SDGs also cut across each other. And so we have to have, design our path. We have to have a roadmap how to have this common database, because having this common database is also not easy. So now I'm inviting the other expert, Professor Dr. Indu Varshney, to discuss more upon the subject.
Thank you,
Over to-
Professor.
yeah.
Thank you, Professor Vatsala, for providing me this opportunity. First of all, it's a matter of pride and honor for me to be the part of this prestigious webinar. I would like to thank Professor Charan Singh sir to provide me this opportunity to discuss the important issue like SDGs, progress in India and as well as world. The theme of the webinar is very important, as Professor Aruna's book, a very important issue, and Professor Aruna bring it on paper in the form of a book entitled Ensuring Sustainable Development Goals Do Not Become Rhetoric for Public Consideration. My co-panelist, Professor Christopher Garroway, and I honor Professor Aruna and congratulate for this great work on this SDGs. If we talk about SDGs and the concept behind this, the Samagra. Samagra, as you can say in our culture, sustainability and inclusiveness is very important part of our daily life. In our villages, we are connected with each other. Everyone take care of every other person, and if we go behind 25 to 20 or about 40 years, village economy was very much developed. And Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay's Antyodaya Yojana is also considering this SDG. SDG is also from that part. So if we talk about SDG, 17 goals, and most of the goals are connected with the poverty and common people related to poverty. There are some key highlights of India. I put before you. India is, there are so many schemes and programs launched by our government, and these are all related with to improve the SDG performance in India. These schemes and programs as about Jan Dhan Yojana, 4 crore houses under PM Awas Yojana are provided to improve the housing problem of our poor peoples. Government, this is our household problems. Are the SDG number 1, poverty, and this poverty index, for removing this poverty, government is doing very good job in this direction. One minute, just a minute. The composite score for India improved now from 57 in 2018 to 66 in 2021 and further 71 in 23-24. Now, India has taken significant strides in accelerating progress on the SDGs between the 2021 to 23-24 edition of the index. Noteworthy advancements have been observed in Goal 1, no poverty, Goal 8, decent work and economic growth, Goal 13, climate action. These are now in front runner category. Among these, Goal 13, climate action has shown the most substantial improvement, with its score increasing from 54 to 67. Goal 1, no poverty, follows closely, with its score rising significantly from 60 to 72. The progress underscores the effects of the focused programmatic intervention and the schemes of the union and state government since 2018. India has witnessed substantial progress in several key SDGs. Significant progress has been made in Goal 1, Goal 3, Goal 6, good health and well-being, clean water and sanitation, Goal 7, affordable and clean energy, industry innovation and Goal 9, industry innovation and infrastructure, and Goal 11, sustainable cities and communities. Government is focusing these important goals, and these are some achievements. Over 4 crore houses under the PM Awas Yojana has been provided to downwards people. 11 crore toilets and 2.23 lakh community sanitary complexes in the rural areas. 10 crore LPG connections under PM Ujjwala Yojana. Tap water connections provided under Jal Jeevan Mission. 30 crore beneficiary under Ayushman Bharat for health and sanitation, for health and well-being. Coverage of 80 crore people under the National Food Security Act. Are in our goal number 2, we are now under no hunger zone. Government is providing ration to all people, and its number is 80 crore. So we are in the phase of the people to provide food security for the and our food security mission is continuing from 2013, and now government is providing ration to all these people. Direct benefit transfer of 34 lakh crore made through PM Jan Dhan accounts. The Skill India mission has led to over 1.4 crore youth being trained and upskilled, and has reskilled 54 lakh youth. PM Mudra Yojana sanctioned 43 crore loans, and PM Mudra Yojana give opportunity to women especially to foster them for the better future. Startup India and Stand Up India also provide assistance to the youth to self-employment, to create self-employment for them. The Saubhagya scheme for access to electricity is also government providing. So there are so many schemes government is providing, government forces to ensure that our SDGs goals may be occur till our target 2030. State and union territories are going forward. Kerala is on number 1 this time. Kerala and Uttarakhand, both states are on top of the and are UP, as I related to the state of UP. UP is also doing good in this direction. Yet yet the state was in not in the proper category, and it was on the I can say the first ladder, and now it is going to switch from first ladder to top ladder. So yet it is not in the top category, but it is going to improve the and provide facilities to all these to improve these SDG goals. So significant progress in goals on eliminating poverty, providing decent work, economic growth, climate action, and life on land. These are the sectors in which government is doing very good. So overall SDG score for our country is 71 for 23-24, as Niti Aayog in July 24 has put the report in front of all of us. So government is doing good, but if we go to our history, our culture fully support the SDG goals. Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay's Antyodaya Yojana was of this category of samagra and inclusive growth, samagra vikas for all of us. Everyone should not left behind is the part of our culture, and now we are going forward to achieve or attain these SDGs goals. And the time, as we say, that we should take more time to achieve these goals, because the whole world is not up to the mark to achieve these goals. The top most country, Finland, is also not on top achievers. So we are in the runner position now, top runner position. So we should occur all these achievement goals. I would like to thank Professor Aruna, Dr. Aruna Sharma, to put these goals in front of us, to put the important issue, and we should discuss and find out these goals. Government, what should before the government is doing good, but the policy should also be improved, as we we are not in the achiever category. As India is the 2040 mission, we are going to the target of the government is to become our country in the category of developed nations to achieve the position of developed country, Atmanirbhar Bharat situation should be the part of this SDGs, and it should, I can say it is not should be, it is the part of SDGs. All our schemes and programs are to maintain these SDGs. So I would like to thank Professor Charan Singh sir, Professor Aruna, Dr. Aruna Sharma ji, or Professor Vatsala to give me opportunity to express my views on this important issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Indu, for presenting the data before us, especially with respect to our country, India, that is better known as Bharat now. As we are getting self-reliant and we are moving towards Viksit Bharat. And we know that, very rightly said, that we need policy intervention. And we all know that growth and sustainable, development is not natural. We need policy intervention and effective implementation tools as well. And it is good to know that India is performing well in different or in some aspects at least. And we have hit the target for some of these SDGs. Yet we have to go far. And now the floor, I think, should be open for one or two questions from the participants here. If anyone has any question, comments. Yes.
Professor Vatsala, there's a question in the chat box. If Dr. Aruna wants to take that. Out of 17 World Sustainable Development Goals, how many goals we have succeeded so far, and how many goals are on the way to success or near to success? My own question was, Dr. Aruna, as we were discussing before we started, do you see a setback given, do you see a setback to achieving the goals given the new international economic order that is emerging? Because I think from globalization, we could be probably returning back to regionalism, or not even regionalism, just your own country. So would you think that SDG goals would suffer a setback on that?
Okay, I'll take both the questions one after the other. The first one is each of the goals, 7 goals, is work in progress. The world has sort of ticked off the box of even a single goal. Because if you look at it, as I have said it before, 11 of the goals are on poverty related issues. And poverty could be of environment, poverty could be of having just subsistence level of employment and not graduating to sustainable, or ideally through surplus incomes. Then it could be poverty when we are talking about, it could be also in terms of some pandemic hitting them, health issues not going, or their economy is not able to support the welfare measures or hand-holding measures that they were doing. So for each of these 17 goals, it is still work in progress. And it is very important for you to understand that only 12% of progress is being shown as on date. Even though we have cut from 2015 to 2025, 10 years have gone. And we have 5 more years to reach 2030. So this is the time to go to the drawing board, have a focused kind of a delivery systems, which is system-based, systematic-based, which will take us from subsistence to sustainable and ideally to the surplus, like I said before. So if we are able to do that, then even if we spill over 2030, at least we are on a right path, which is concentrated and moving ahead. Coming to the second question of Dr. Charan Singh, it is of a matter of concern because the way America has come out with a public statement that climate is of no concern or no priority zone for them. But climate harming, it is not affecting the thought process of rest of the world. They may be withdrawing their commitment to it, and US is the country which has caused maximum harm to the climate because of the usage of the release of carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide they do through processed food usage itself, not to talk of other things. So with this kind of a thing, the rest of the world is definitely through public forums going to arm up on this and not going to accept a derailment on the issue. Luckily, European Union concern is very, very clear. They came with CBAM as a collective measure for it. Similarly, India has also flagged it and bringing down their emission percentages. So this is something for the survival of the own country. And here the maximum investment is going to come from the private sector. So in the sense, it is doable provided the policymakers facilitate it and draw it towards the right line. So even though a major contributor to the pollution and major contributor as per the Paris principle supposed to fund for it has taken a backhand or has done a withdrawal. So that is something of concern, and I think that is what it is going to move ahead as we proceed. So therefore, it is very, very important and not to feel sort of thinking that we are going back to square one. It is one country, one opinion, which is, of course, tangent to the collective thinking and collective steps that are being taken. And I'm very sure that they will continue to do. Here, I would like to make a mention of China. China has been very clear they want to be free. And that is where they are heading at for the next hosting of Olympic Games at Beijing. It will be a pollution-free country. And they are also consciously working on the universal minimum wages. So they are consciously working using this Samagra kind of a model because through UNICEF, they took the details from me, where they are bringing the income up of the low paid. The rich will become richer, is given. And that is what China says. That, okay, they have a better risk-taking ability, they will become richer. But the governance comes that how the low income groups, we are able to bring them to the next level so that it will trigger the virtuous cycle of demand. And they are moving ahead for that. You will be amazed to know that China disbanded, or I will say scrapped, 100 million tons of induction-based steel making, which was causing maximum pollution. Scrapped it completely, reskilled the people and employed them elsewhere. So that kind of a consciousness is there on another superpower, which is there on the World Forum. So definitely, to preserving climate is not kept on shelf. It is very much alive, very much the concern, and countries are working towards it. And I'm sure this will become a power against the one tangent exception which has come in the recent arena.
But Dr. Aruna, though you have mentioned it clearly, but you know that when it came to the problems, Germany went back to the coal furnaces, and you know, when they had problems with Russia and they were not getting the supply. So do you think that the commitments towards SDG goals, be it climate, be it poverty, and I don't think they even lived up to the contributions that they had promised, and I don't see any commitment to that given the changed new international economic order. So though while you say that's one country, but that's the largest country in the world, And then the other countries in the world don't seem to be showing any corrective measures. Even if you take climate, I haven't seen anywhere anybody saying, okay, we will reduce the number of Boeings and jets that we are going to produce, or we are going to go in for a mechanism where the pollution caused by these jets and propeller engines, we are going to rectify. The electric vehicles seem to be taking a back seat. I myself did a study on retro fitting where I said, let's move from the combustion engine to electric engine and don't have to change the chassis so we can move it faster. I see globally no greater initiative on that. So my own thought was that has SDG goals taken a backseat now with the new regime?
Uh, Again, I will not like to agree with you because, what the focus is not banning, like I said before also, towards climate ban is not the approach. Ban is how efficiently we use the fossil fuels and bring down the emissions. So the entire research is getting directed towards reducing the emissions. And similarly on coal-based generation, coal as a fuel, major fuel for generating the calories or the heat that is needed for the manufacturing. There also the entire focus is to recycle the emissions to the heat cycle so that they are not emitted in the air. And that is where the pollution percentage has been filed. India has also come up by bringing in a range. So it is not to be more than 2.2. That is the kind of percentage that has come. The electric vehicles, if you look at it, the lithium is the issue which is there with China. And while making the lithium battery, it is lot of energy is used in making of that battery. So research is again going on the gas usage to make it commercially viable. So these are not taken back seats. This is very much on the burner and not the coal burner, but very much on the burner to constantly trigger the innovations to head for it. Because the acceptance that yes, the climate pollution is to be taken care of and each country is funding. And like I said before, here the initiative is coming more from the private sector than government putting the money there. Yes, with the coming down of aid, countries don't have that kind of resources, but then those countries are also least polluted. You look at the world cycle. So the concern has to be to bring in the pressure on US, which is trying to wriggle out of this responsibility towards humanity. And that international pressure has to be the goal in all the international forums, constantly in all the debates, so that they are kept on track and they are made to reconsider where they are heading at, because US cannot continue to follow its own path and do away with the Paris principles where they have to pay the cost for what pollution they have already caused to the universe. So that is what is very, very important. So it is in the thought process. The researches are going on. Only thing is it is to be made commercially viable. And each of the private sector has worked out. Like if you look at the textile, it is talking about entire value chain from the production of cotton to that of yarn to the kind of processing they are doing, the water, they are now textile. I know the topmost two textile industries in India who have taken up the projects for sewage water treatments. And that water they are using for textile because it is a high water consuming industry. So in the sense, each industry is now setting its own goal. And good thing is in the debate of the companies, the ESG is taking a center stage, because E as the environment and as such social and G as governance. So environment is center stage. So each of the processes is being examined, verified, and that is giving them a USP in their cost, whether it is for domestic consumption or for the exports. So in the sense, it is very much imbibed in the agenda of production. It is very much imbibed in everybody. And the principle is it's not a ban. You don't ban the plastic. You recycle the plastic by shredding it and using it for tarring the roads, because that is what gives it sustainability and a better way of disposal. Similarly, in mining, when you are going for it, it is not to ban the mining, but mine it in the process which is environment friendly. And Goa had given the best of the example for it, which has got international recognition also, the way they took the mining of it. And definitely the slow shift is going to be from fossil fuels to others. But pandemic and India, like I always argue on this, India will continue to use the fossil fuel for another 50 years on coal. No doubt about it. Even though the percentage of other renewable energies and other sources is going to go up. But then the process is, how do you mine it? How do you process it? How do you burn it to get the heat energy? That is where the focus is on, and successfully it has been done, because you find many of the industries which has brought it down to less than 2. They've come to 1.9 to 1.8, which is a good sign that we want. And it does not require a very big investment. It requires more a concern and going ahead.
There are a couple of questions in the chat box. If Professor
Yes.
Vatsala, you want to.
Yes,
Couple
sir,
of-
please. I can't find it here. So please, if you can see the messages, please
Yeah, there are,
take up.
Professor, let me read it then. There is one from Katsimi. Good afternoon, ma'am. Do you feel greenwashing of SDG achievements is real? Will Common Household Database help address this? Then there is another one. I have a question about SDG 13, where we talk about carbon credit, how it will work and how it will help in reducing emission and cope up with climate change. Then
Yeah.
there's another one. What will be the impact of US withdrawal from the Paris climate agreements?
Yes, very much well said. As far as the withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement is concerned, I can see the 3 questions here. Is concerned, it is, anyway, they were not contributing. The pressure was being built up in all the COP meetings, like the last being 29, that the developed economies have to abide by the Paris Climate Agreement and contribute underdeveloped and many of the developing economies to adopt the technology which will cause the least of the pollution. So the withdrawal impact is going to be a freezing of this fund, which anyway was not coming. Till date, they have not contributed. It was only that because there is an agreement, it was discussed, and this agreement has been thrown out of window by the US. So that building of pressure is very, very important when we are talking about it, to make them understand that the country which has polluted most cannot escape the international responsibility towards humanity. And that voice has to echo at every forum. And that is how we will have to work. Your next question is, greenwashing of SDG achievement is real. Will Common Household Database help? Yes, very much it helps, because it helps in better targeting. Because what was happening is, every time there used to be a survey by health, by education, by somebody on BPL, by this, by that, the moment you sought to a household, know that to a household you are giving scholarship to 3 children. So you are helping in their education. You have skilled the women of the family. The man of the family is finding a sustainable employment in ABC place. Or this is a family which is not getting any employment, healthcare or anything. We have failed to reach that family. So all this database is getting thrown up and enabling to reach that. I'll give you one example that once Samagra was the first to come up, and then other 7 states adopted it by giving different. It's like Andhra gave it, Telangana gave it the Samagras, like that. So like that it has come up, and Samagra is all comprehensive. We were amazed to know that differently abled, and especially those who have mental disabilities, even the well placed economical family used to hide such people. They were not in public domain. They were not in any databases. They were completely left out. And that unable to identify them and sort of handhold them and move them ahead. So these are the worst and last in the queue who are left out. So this is the kind which is going to help up. And for you to understand, recently you must have seen many states announcing that we'll give 1,000 to the women or 1,500 to women to 2,500 to women. From where are they getting this database immediately? It is coming from these common household databases where if the intention is to execute their promise, they are able to do on the day too. Like it was announced, and already when you have a common household databases, the verified bank account number, DBT already in place, it makes a lot of difference for welfare measures. It makes a lot of difference to target. It makes a lot of difference for policy correction. You get to know that your policy is not working and it is getting left out. This one shoe fits all does not work. So this has shown a lot of progress in better targeting. And that's how you find, like I gave you examples of many countries who are slowly graduating towards this start. And their start point is what largest database they have household wise. And they're graduating from there and merging their databases to have a better results and better targeting. Then your question on SDG 13, when you talk of carbon credits, the carbon credit is used for trading, carbon credits, which you can sort of bargain for in the trading matters of it. But this carbon credit is definitely helping in moving towards reducing the emission. Because suppose I give you an example of steel. A green steel will get labeled on the norms which has been released by the government of India as to what do they call it as a green steel. And that percentage they have defined it very, very clear. So those who get their particular plant steel made at that level will get a label of green steel, and it will be fetching price 8% to 10% more than normal steel prices. So there is an incentive for the industry itself to invest upon it and graduates towards the green steel. So that is how this climate carbon credits is finding acceptance in the industry, because these kind of policy making, CBAM of entire European Union is an example. And they say if you don't comply to the accepted norms which they have given, then you will be fined or you will have to pay this much extra entry tax. It is as simple as that, right? There is one which has come.
Yeah, more questions.
How many goals we have succeeded? This I have already answered. All goals are work in progress. No goal we have achieved as yet. How many goals we have succeeded? It's a repeat. Right. So definitely we have not succeeded. We have not gone for multi-dimensional poverty eradication at all. Either we nor in the rest of the world. Slow progress is there. We have to only ensure that progress is toward in the right direction, and we have benchmarking. It is not that we give a target of 2047 means till 2047 we don't do anything. There's a benchmarking that you are on the right path. You can achieve even earlier than that. These goals, right? Right. I don't see any new question on that. I hope I've answered. Yes, I've answered all of them.
Yes, I think there is no more question. So thank you, Dr. Aruna. It is good to know that we are on a right track, and our country, I hope, or we all hope that it can do wonders. It can lead the world. We are ready with the system with Jan Dhan and Aadhaar and all. Now we can accelerate our pace, and yet we have to connect the dots. We have to seal the leakages for the desired result. We have to do more work or hard work in energy sector and so many other sectors as well. And we are trying to do better. So we have also improved in manufacturing sector with Atmanirbhar Bharat, and many startups have come up now. And we are regaining our, self-pride and self-confidence. Now, as we are working on this concept of Samagra, and so many other states are also, they have, accepted this. Many countries are also working on this concept of Samagra. We need to have that holistic approach, just as in education as well. It is not only reading different subjects. We are reading all these subjects to make our life better. We are, subjects are for us. We are not to live in the silos, because if I interpret in terms of education and in an educational setup, we know that different departments, they work like they don't have any connection with each other. So we have to develop this holistic approach, whether it is in learning, teaching and learning, or in other sectors as well. And as we know that the one of the pillars of education is learning to live together. Now we have to learn how to grow together, and learning from each other's experiences, as these countries are also doing. And we hope a better future for our country and for the world. Thank you to all the panelists and Dr. Aruna Sharma, the speaker of the day, who has introduced us with this concept of Samagra, that how it is working, and for such a vibrant discussion on the subject. So thank you, everyone. And especially thanks to Professor Charan Singh for giving me this opportunity and to learn something out of it. Thank you.
Let me thank all of you.
Thank you.
especially-
Bye-bye.
Especially for the day, Dr. Aruna and Dr. Vatsala for chairing it. Chris, so good that we could finally connect and bring you on EGROW. We have been trying for a long time. And Professor Indu for joining us and sharing with us the Indian data and saying where we are making headway into it. So thank you very much. We'll put the on our website by tomorrow. We'll have the recording, and I'm sure you will be able to use it. Next week, we have Nobel laureate Professor James Robinson, who got the Nobel Prize in 24 on institutions. He is going to be speaking on democracy and growth. So the timing, because he's going to be speaking to us from Chicago, the timing is 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. It's a little awkward time, but I would invite you to be part of that discussion from the Nobel laureate himself. And then on March 14, we have another Nobel laureate, again, who got the Nobel Prize for institutions. He will be speaking to us, but on a more reasonable time, 6:30 to 7:30. So I would invite you to please join us next week, 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. to listen to James Robinson on democracy and growth. So finally, I want to also thank the participants who have stayed with us. We normally do our discussions from 4 to 5 or 4 to 5:30. Very, very rarely we do it from 2:30 to 4. And we tried it today and we had about 85 people with us. And I thought that was a very good number. So thank you very much for being with us. Thanks to the participants for raising important questions so that we have all learned from each other. And looking forward to meeting you all next week on a Friday. Have a great weekend and see you next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.